a nice fish, Brian.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. Let me grab him for you. Use this little lip gripper thing deal here.
Put it around your wrist.
Yep, I got it. Yeah, we don't want to release the gripper, do we?
No, they're too expensive.
There we go. Look at him, he's got all kinds of black spots on him.
That's all right, he's a big largemouth. We'll take him.
Come here, fishy. Right through the nose, too. Let me just grab your line just a hair. Get a little control over this guy. Come here.
He won't hurt you, the crankbait will.
Well, that's it.
There you go. All right. Just hold him on that. Let's get the
November fishing on the Northeast River. Hey, this is going to be a good one. Wow, what a fish.
They're stacking up. That's a better fish. Nice fish.
It is a nice fish.
I'll get the
Yeah, he took a swipe at the crankbait and he got the wrong end of it. Let me just bring him over to you, Brian.
Well, let's hope we can get him.
Yep. Well, I'm going to take it real easy on him. Real easy. Real easy.
You know what? He's hooked good.
Yeah, we're going to give him a quick lift.
Quick lift coming up.
Quick lift. There we go.
They're stacking up here.
Yep.
I didn't know if they would be.
I got him.
There you go.
Well, sometimes the crankbait gets you, sometimes you get the crankbait. Hey, we're here on the Northeast River today with Brian Immekus from Brian's Guide Service. I'm going to say it's late fall. We're in November. We're enjoying some great largemouth fishing. This is the second fish we got on a crankbait. Brian, why don't you tell me a little bit about the area we're in?
Well, as you said, we're in the Northeast River. This is the upper bay. Out behind us is the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay where it starts with the Susquehanna River coming down. I'm very fortunate. I live on this river, and I just think it's a magnificent body of water to have as my front yard. You know, we're into fall fishing. We hit a very good day. What is it, November 2nd today? Yep. Water temperature is about 50 degrees. The water clarity is normal. We're good there. These fish are in their fall pattern, eating for the winter. As you can see, that fish is pretty chunky.
Nice thick fish.
And that bigger one I caught had a good belly on him. So the eat is on. We just have to hope that we keep catching some fish. Yesterday I was out and I caught a couple on crankbait, a chatterbait, and some on rubber worms. So I'm not sure what they'll eat the best today. We just have to throw appropriately for the appropriate cover and keep our fingers crossed.
Now I noticed you just stole my crankbait rod.
Well, no, I was being nice and holding that for you.
I appreciate that. Let me get this fish back and we're going to catch a few more.
There you go.
Okay, let's get in here and get this, Brian.
Please.
Now this is a great tool you've got. You got an unsnagger, and with fishing around all this wood and stuff, we are bound to get snagged.
Yeah,
where's your line at here?
It's there. I got clear line on it.
I know you got clear line.
That tool is a crankbait retriever, and I think it extends, I don't know, maybe 12 feet. But God, if you didn't have one of these,
there's your crankbait back.
You'd lose tens of dollars of crankbaits a day down here, and it's just a tool you gotta have.
It's a great tool to have on the boat, and it's saving us money.
You bet.
Okay, well, we kind of switched locations, and we're switching up what we're doing. Now we're pitching docks, Brian. Tell me a little bit about the change in tackle and stuff like that we're now using.
Okay, well, one reason we're fishing here under this dock is I've caught fish here this time. You got one?
Yeah, he's got me hung on something in there
Let's
too.
get you around it. There's a
There's
piece
a-
of pipe or something
Yep.
down there. Is it? Did you still
Oh
got
no,
'em?
the fish shook his head.
Okay.
He might not be there anymore. Let me see. Nope.
Nope, he
Fish
got
is
it. He
gone.
fished one.
That's it. And that's one of the things that happens when you're fishing docks.
Yeah, and the reason I came in here, I was planning on fishing it anyways, but we were fishing outside with crankbaits, which no doubt about it, fish are eating crankbaits. But yesterday I was out and I caught several on worms, and I said, I think they're going to eat both. And so we were here, and this is a good dock. This is 7-8 foot deep out here. And with the water getting colder, these fish will move into deeper docks, and this is one of them. And so I just thought we'd try it. And you know, you just had the unfortunate task of hooking one around a PVC pipe down in the water, and the fish won.
Right.
But it's another pattern, and what helps this pattern today is the fact that there's bright sunshine, and these fish around docks will put their nose in the shade, so it eliminates a lot of water and concentrates them into a smaller specific area.
Right. Now, the docks, like you said, we're fishing are relatively deep, so we didn't give up the pattern of deeper water.
No, but we may try shallow water a little bit later as the sun warms the water.
Right.
You know, as soon as you think you got them figured out, that's when you're in trouble.
Right. And the spinning tackle we're using is really important for fishing these docks.
Oh yeah, because I'm pitching up under there 15 feet. Some guys are good enough to do it with a bait caster. I just think this is the cat's meow for this type of fishing. And I'm using 20 or 30 pound braided with a 20 pound mono leader, because you know, you get some big fish in here, and I don't want to lose them if I don't have to. You know, years ago when the fish were smaller, I used to fish with just 10 pound, but these fish have gotten bigger, so you got to upgrade your line.
Right. And when you're casting up under there, we're both making sure that we've got a lot of line off the reel and that the worm is falling straight down.
Yes, we're following it down, so that if you do by chance get a hit as it drops, you'll be able to detect it. I've seen a lot of fishermen, they just throw it out and let it fall with totally slack line, and if the fish hits them on the drop, they'll never know they got a bite.
Right.
You know, you tell me, that last fish back there, did he hit you on the drop or on the bottom?
He hit me after I came over the pipe.
Okay,
So it was kind of like on the second drop.
okay.
But again, after I lifted off the pipe, I made sure I threw some slack into the line so the worm fell straight.
Right, and you know, that lets the worm fall, let's say natural.
Right.
Is a better presentation.
Now, do you find these outside docks are better, inside docks, individual pilings?
Well, this is sort of unique. We're on the outer part of a marina. They'll also, these fish with all these poles down here, you could just fish the shade of the poles.
Right.
And some days, you know, you'll catch maybe 10, 15 fish just fishing poles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced they're on the poles. I was fishing some yesterday and I never got bit.
Right.
But today's another day. This area is just one that, you know, I've been fishing down here for years. I just know in the fall it has a tendency to hold fish. It doesn't mean every time you fish them you're going to catch fish. It's just a higher percentage area.
Right. And well, we got one bite, and we're really only 75 feet from where we just had a few fish on.
Right.
So it's not like we've completely
No,
relocated.
and we still have deep water here. But you're going to see later today, we're going to be fishing some shallower water, and I'll be surprised if we don't catch fish.
There we go. Got him hooked good, or are we using a lipper?
Well,
You got him with 2 hooks. Let's see. We'll give him a lip.
okay, give him a lipper.
Come here, buddy. There we go.
Yeah,
Boy, these lipper deals,
they're nice.
they do work good, don't they?
They should for the price of them.
That's a nice fish. Long, fat, and cold.
And cold, imagine that.
Cold. Cold fish.
The water's 51, I guess that's
Yep.
what it'd be. Green
Yep.
pliers right
Yep,
down
let me
there,
just
Steve.
reach down here. We'll unhook this guy. Now earlier we were catching them and they were barely hooked. This guy got
He
the
ate it.
entire crankbait, and that's why I had changed colors earlier for a little bit, just to see if they would eat a different color better, but something tells me you're using the right color.
Well, I've caught a few fish on this
Yep.
around here.
Alrighty, let's get this guy back and we'll catch a few more.
There you go.
There you go. Another decent one. There we go. We move
That's a
locations again. Now, this dock that we're fishing is actually on some rocky bank.
Yeah, and they've got the rock there to prevent erosion.
That's a nice little fish.
Little guy keeps your interest. That guy was caught on a slider head with a worm. It's an open hook. Remember I said earlier that with the colder water, it's a lethargic bite. And I think the open hook, you just get a better chance of a hookup.
Oh yeah. And that was, again, we pulled up on a spot. Now this fish was shallow,
Yeah, that was only in about a foot of water.
and it was the first set of pilings off the bank. So this fish was much shallower than the other fish that we've caught.
Yeah, it was also smaller too, though.
Right.
You know, there's another one, another little guy.
There we go. You know, now that says something. You know what it says?
There's,
Put the crankbait down that I'm throwing,
Well,
and
for-
to pick up the worm.
for this type of cover, I agree.
That's another fish, and that was second fish here in about 30 seconds. Again, on the open hook, on the slider,
Yeah.
vertical fall right down by the pilings, and you catch the fish. Okay, I gotta pick up my other rod. Now, if I wanted to come down here in the spring for bass fishing, for largemouthing, when does that get good?
April, May, June.
Right.
It can be good fishing.
Now, that time of year, they're fishing for them like up in the coves and the canals and the cuts and stuff.
Well, I don't know about canals, but cuts. You know, these largemouth, when they spawn, they want to get into protected areas. And so these coves, whether they're natural or man-made, that's generally where they catch the fish, because the fish do get up there to spawn.
Now, after they spawn, the bass pretty much move out to the main river and then out onto the Susquehanna Flats.
Yeah, you know, my personal thing of what I see after the spawn, you get a couple-week eating spree where they're still around the spawning areas, and after that, I generally go out to the grass beds because they move out into the grass beds in the flats. And like the month of June, boy, it can be good frog fishing.
That's
over
on the
gra-
matted grass.
Over the grass.
Now, you also do a smallmouth deal not too
Yes.
far from here.
Yes. Well, you know, this is Upper Chesapeake Bay fishing, and we're very fortunate to have such a magnificent body of water. We've got tidal rivers, and then you have the Susquehanna River that comes all the way from New York. And I have a tin boat, and I'll take it up above the Conowingo Dam, the first dam, and go smallmouth fishing up in the rocks up there. And the month of April into May, the smallmouth fishing, for around here, it's outstanding. You know, it's not like going to Lake Champlain or Canada, but it's damn good.
Right. Now, when does the fall bass really get started down here? Because I know we're here in November and the water temperature is already down to, I don't know, 50, 51 degrees.
Right.
What kind of water temperature does the fall bass fishing get started at?
It gets started good when the water hits about 67, 65.
Brian, I'm noticing from the pilings and stuff on the pier, the tide's coming in. What kind of changes do you make according to the tide around here?
Well, let me say this, and I'll base this on experience from fishing this river so much. There are some places that are better fishing on lower water. There's some better places that are better fishing on higher water. The place where we're at here, I really don't like fishing it when the tide's much higher. What we're going to be doing later is going to some docks that normally don't have that much water on them, but with the tide coming in and getting higher, the fish will move up on them. And the other thing that happens with this tidal water fishing, if the tide doesn't move, the fish do not eat. And I think this is a good tide because I'll tell you why. It's coming in rapidly because of the normal incoming tide, but we have a south wind blowing the water up the bay, so it's escalating the speed of the current, and the fish generally eat better on a ripping tide versus a tide that doesn't move. But when you're out fishing, you know, you can't control the tide, so you just got to fish it. And you got to be aware of it. And if the tide's not moving, time to sit down and eat lunch.
Right. Now the tide will also reposition the fish too, because you may be catching fish up on the insides of the docks, the water goes out and the fish may move out towards the deeper ends.
That's right. On incoming water though, I'll tell you what I'll see. The fish will tend to move up shallower versus on the outgoing tide, they're generally not as shallow.
And they move quick on an incoming tide.
Oh yeah. That tide's the dinner bell.
Now, there are spots, like you said, that you fish on certain tides and don't fish on certain tides.
Right.
Are there spots that you fish that are good on any tide?
If you've got a dock that goes from 0 to 6 feet, that can be good at any tide because there's enough water depth for the fish to move out or move in.
Right, and that's a great tip for our viewers is if a dock always has water around it, there's a good chance that fish will be there. If the dock gets dry, fish might only be there at high water.
That's right. Well, yeah, they're not. If there's no water, you can bet they're not going to be there.
And now for a closer look at today's tackle, Delaware Valley Outdoors presents the Tackle Box. For more information about the tackle used on today's show, go to DelawareValleyOutdoors.com.
Well, Brian, we come to the part of the show known as the Tackle Box, and today we've got a ton of stuff to talk about. We used a bunch of different stuff out there. Not all of it's just plain tackle, some of it's technique. And I want to get started with the soft plastics we caught some of the fish on.
Okay.
One of the first things that you caught fish on was, it was a green pumpkin worm, Texas rigged, and you caught fish on docks on this. And just tell me a little bit about how you have the worm rigged.
Okay.
And how you fished it.
Well, here's the worm. Notice one thing, it has the tail. It's called a vibe worm because that tail vibrates a lot in the water. And there's times I think that tail just adds something different to it and will attract the attention of the fish. As far as the Texas rig, it's pretty simple. I'll even take this hook off. And the way that's done is put it through the head of the worm, about 1/4 of an inch, pull it out, you turn it over, and then I countersink it in the worm. And the hook, if it goes through, I'll pull it back out. That makes it, let's say, as snag proof as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And notice how this is also up. I'm not sure that makes a lot of difference whether it's up or down, but that's generally how I start it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was throwing a 3/8 ounce bullet head sinker on it,
right,
to get it down to the bottom.
Right. Now the weight of the sinker is important for 2 reasons. Number one, we had some wind,
Yep.
so the sinker helped us cast where we wanted to cast. But the other thing is, if I could pull this away from you, this sinker, when it pulls the worm down, activates the tail. If your sinker's too light, the tail won't really do a whole lot.
Yeah, and the other thing you have to contend with in this water is, don't forget we're in tidal water.
Right.
That will have a tendency to influence the worm too.
Right. Now, we fished basically the same worm on another rig. We fished almost the same worm, again, a green pumpkin, but this is a slider head, and this is like the old ball jig style of fishing.
Right.
Open hook, helps you hook the fish a little bit easier, but there's a certain reason you use this, and what would that reason be?
Well, 2 reasons I was using it some today. I know these waters rather well, and I know where if there isn't junk on the bottom, you can get away with an open hook. The second reason is for the last month, the worm bite has been very lethargic, except for that fish you stuck on a worm.
Right.
And they're not hitting them hard generally, and it's just a real gentle pickup, and I think the open hook gives you a much higher percentage of hookups.
Right. And this is what? It looks like about a quarter-ounce slider
That's
head.
a quarter-ounce slider head.
And you caught a couple fish back-to-back on that, on
Right.
some shallow docks, and it was a lot cleaner bottom. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff.
Like I said, I knew that bottom, that generally there isn't junk on it.
Right.
And so I know where I can get away with it. And even if you lose some of those in a day's time, I don't know how much they are, 10 cents, 20 cents, it's not a big deal in
Right.
economics.
Right. Now the other worm that we caught some fish on, or at least I caught one on, again, it's another Zoom brand worm, and it's green pumpkin. It's a lot slimmer, but it also has that curly tail for the
Right.
action. This is rigged on a size 1/0 weedless hook, just the way you had yours Texas rigged on a slip sinker. And I think that today I fished a straight tail worm some, and I didn't get bit at all. And I think the reason that I didn't get bit was the straight tail worm.
Could be.
After you got a few bites on the curly tail worm, I went over to the curly tail worm. Now the real star of the day was the crankbait bite.
Yes, it was.
And the actual crankbait that you were using is this little beauty right here. And I don't know if you can really appreciate it from the view, but this crankbait has been worn hard, put up wet, and owes Brian not a cent. Okay? Now, I can tell you from looking at this crankbait does not quite look stock.
It is a stock crankbait, except
But
it's a war veteran. I've also changed the hooks.
there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, and you got a great big shark hook on there.
Yeah, I put a big one on the
Yep.
back.
And that definitely helps hook the fish, especially on a day like today where I had several fish on a crankbait. One just barely nipped at the tail hook and I lost the fish next to the boat. And the other one had missed the crankbait and got hooked in the body.
Right.
So that's telling me, they're not biting real good. But I would rather just barely hook one on a big hook like this than on a smaller hook.
Yeah, also something that I did, and I don't know if you viewers can see this, but do you see the wood in the back of it and how beat up it is? That's balsa wood. And what I do after I knock the chip off of it, or the paint off of it, I keep a little bottle of clear fingernail polish nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll do is recoat it a couple times, because if that wood gets wet, now it's not as buoyant as it used to be.
It won't run real well.
Yeah,
either.
and I don't even know how much these crankbaits are anymore. $7, $8, $9.
Mm-hmm.
They're too expensive. So
Right.
when you're throwing them up against docks and that, it pays to touch them up a little bit with some
Right.
fingernail polish.
Right.
And it's a proven warrior.
Mm-hmm. Now the crankbait I caught a few fish on, or had a few fish on, caught one, is this wooden flat side crankbait with one of the electrical board bills. Again, has the greenish chartreuse in it, same basic tint, a little bit bigger hook on the tail, and it got some bites. Fish were lethargic. It was 50-degree water. They didn't want to bite real great. But in a way of lures, that's what we caught fish on, but that's not where it ends today with the tackle box. Okay? We had something happen today that saved us literally at least $100. Okay? If this crankbait is $10, if the Bagley crankbait is $10, we probably got snagged $200 worth of snags.
Possibly.
Okay? And the thing that saved us is this handy dandy little gadget right here with this springy deal on the end of it. Tell me about this lure retriever, where you found it, how you found it, how long you've been using it, and how much it saved you.
Oh, I always keep one of these on the boat. I probably go through one every year or two. It's just called a crankbait retriever. In its shrunk position, it's this big, but it will come telescope out and you tighten these things down, and it will go down. I don't know if it's 10 or 12 feet. It's significant, and you get the line through there, and what you're able to do is get right on top of it, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to be able to jerk the
crankbait
crankbait
right
loose. And a couple times on me, we couldn't jerk it loose, but we broke the line, and my old Warrior Bagley, 30 seconds later, it floated up.
Right.
So, you know, if this thing costs 15 bucks, like you say, it saved us 100, 200 bucks today. And throwing crankbaits down here in the fall, you got to get down to where the cover is, which we were fishing old pilings that had spikes on it. And if you don't have one of these, it's going to be very expensive. And if you're not throwing where the cover is, you're not going to catch the fish.
Right.
So it's like anything. You've got to have the tools of the trade. And this little guy is a handy dandy little tool of the trade.
Right. Now the next thing that we used, and I don't normally use it, maybe I'm cheap, whatever it is, but I have never gone out and purchased a boga grip or a lip gripper. It's a proven fact that most people get hooked when they're unhooking a fish if it's something with a treble hook.
Yeah, like a crankbait.
Right. So today we were crankbait fishing. We would take the fish, you come up, you get the fish's mouth, and then you have him by the jaw, you lift him up, and the fish is not going to hook you. You can unhook him with your pliers. And this tool was a really great little item to have today.
Oh yeah, for throwing crankbaits, because I don't keep a net in the boat. They just take up too much room, okay? And I've had treble hooks in the finger, and I just want to avoid that at all cost. You know, and that's probably a $100 tool, but for crankbait fishing, it's a necessity. The other thing is that tool, see how wide this opens? Okay.
Sure, you could get a big 30, 40, 50 pound striper and hold it.
Let me tell you a story. I had a cheaper one, and I don't know who it was made by. It was a third the cost, and I caught a 48-pound striper, and I said to my buddy, how about getting the tool and lipping that striper? And he came back to me and said, the lips are too big. It won't fit. What do I got to do? I said, well, you got to use your hands now. But getting a 48-pound fish out of the water is difficult. This sucker will do it, okay? But I always tell people, when you go to do that, put the strap, because otherwise that's $100 that will go bloomp bloomp. And if somebody loses it, they bought me a new one.
Right. Well, there you have it. That's our tackle box for today. Nice fish too.
Yes, it is. Good job there, Steve.
Let's see if we can get this guy.
Here, let me have your pole. It looks like you need help.
Oh, I need help, all right. There we go.
Good job.
Yep, another nice Northeast River fish. Hey, Brian, it's been a great day.
It has
I want to
been.
thank you for coming on the show. Folks, if you ever want to come down here, look up Brian at Brian's Guide Service, and check us out on the web, DelawareValleyOutdoors.com. It's been a great day again, Brian. Let's let this guy go, and I'll see you on the water. Number 2 of the day. I'm just going to swing him up here real quick.
Okay.
Oh, he's off.